Here in the Isle of Man, we're always talking about buying local, shopping local, and supporting Manx farmers. So, how does the fair trade movement here on the island sit within that context?
It's great actually because they are totally complementary. We'd be the first to say we should be supporting Manx farmers, and from a sustainability point of view, to be using eating produce made on the Isle of Man as the first port of call. But funnily enough, just looking out the window at the weather, we can't grow coffee, sugar, tea or chocolate here. So typically the items that you would buy as fair trade can't be sourced on the Isle of Man. So it is completely complementary.
So you mentioned the logo, which will be instantly recognisable if once you know what you're looking for. Is that the only way to tell you're buying something that's a fair trade product?
That is a fair trade certified product, yes. There are other products that might be fairly traded, and there are various other marks to say that an item has been fairly traded, but to know that they actually go through the fair trade programme and receive that minimum price, you do need to look for the logo.
So we are talking then about Fairtrade Fortnight, which is coming up next month. What are the plans for that?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we've just had a fair trade conference for primary school children, which government very kindly let us host in the Burrell Suite in Legislative Building. So we had representatives from 17 primary schools there, all learning about fair trade and debating it. It's a conversation. But at the end of the day, they're tasked with planning what they could do when they go back to their schools. So what could they do in their schools for Fairtrade Fortnight? And some of that might be actually doing an assembly for another school, or having some parents in and talking to parents about fair trade. So there's a group of activities in schools. We'd also like to get businesses involved. Fairtrade Fortnight is a great opportunity to have a bit of fun. So, maybe you could have a fair trade bake-off at your place of work. Or maybe you can push for your employer to actually stock fair trade tea and coffee for employees. There's all sorts of scopes. The churches are very good at supporting fair trade. Often they'll have a fair trade tea. Maybe you could do a fair trade wine tasting. The opportunities are endless to have a bit of fun and also to get that message over about fair trade and making sure that people in the developing world get a fair price for what they produce.
And I'm guessing, as obviously a lot of events are concentrated in that fortnight, but this conversation must carry on outside of that time as well.
Absolutely. Fair trade doesn't happen just for 2 weeks of the year. It's something we need to think about all the time. We're certainly working at the moment with the hospitality industry. As we all know here, we still do get lots of tourists, fortunately, and lots of visitors. So we are particularly wanting to talk over the next year or so with B&Bs, cafes, restaurants. We've got a lot of support already, but there are other people that we'd like to introduce to fair trade. They could maybe use it in their restaurants or in their cafes. Also, the B&Bs could use it on their welcome trays, the little single sachets. So again, there's lots of scope.
And how has it changed, Wendy, in terms of the awareness of fair trade in the time that you've been involved? Because I know at one time I'd sort of heard the term but didn't really know what it was about. It seems more and more each year the One World Centre and the Fair Trade Group do seem to be doing much more to raise awareness. So is that sort of bleeding through to the island population?
Yeah, I kind of do a test when we run our Global Village on Tynwald Day in July. We usually have some kind of fair trade presence there, and I will quite often test the younger people that are coming along. Do you know what this mark is? What does it mean? What do you know about fair trade? And it's surprising, actually, there is a great wealth of knowledge, particularly among the younger generation. It's maybe some of the older generation that we need to work with a bit harder.
That's really interesting, isn't it? The children educating the parents in that regard.
Absolutely, and we mentioned the youngsters there, and how important is education when it comes to fair trade and getting young people involved in the initiative?
Well, I think children just have an innate sense of fairness. One of the workshops we do at the conference is it's actually philosophy for children, which is just sitting and talking and thinking about fairness, and it starts off, fairness in their own lives. What do you think's fair? What do you think isn't? And there was a little exercise with dishing out some money to different groups and how they felt about the different amounts that people got, and really the children wanted to share, and they couldn't understand why things couldn't be shared. So I think children totally get the idea of fair trade, and that everybody should be paid fairly. We're very fortunate where we're born and where we live in sort of the Western world, the developed world, and it's just an accident of birth that people are born at other places where they don't have the privileges that we do. So I think children totally get it. They just need to be told, really, and to be. It's about encouraging conscious consumers, I think. So every time we buy something or we make a decision, we just need to give a little bit of thought about it. So it's that sort of critical thinking, really, that you can make a difference, even if it's really tiny. Just by thinking about what you do and the choices you make, you can make a difference.